Acha, sorry, welcome back, students.
सर
Actually, I was trying to switch on the recordings. So, we'll
सर
get,
स्क्रीन शो नहीं हो रही सर।
जी जी, अभी हो रही है?
नहीं सर, आपकी पिक्चर शो हो रही है, ये प्राउड लैंग्वेज।
एक सेकेंड। I think it's working now.
यस सर, इट्स वर्किंग।
Okay, so let's get back to Barthes again. जिस तरह Levi Strauss जो है ना, वो he tries to apply Saussure model on anthropology. Similarly, Barthes brought this model into literary criticism. So uh, that's why Barthes is one of the most important figures in literary criticism in the context of uh, structuralism in literary criticism. So for Barthes, a critic's job is to not is to describe the text, not the work. So basically, for him, the work is a thing that you hold in your hand. It's a product, while the text is a methodological field, a process of signification. In his essay, The Death of the Author, he makes the radical claim that the author's intention are irrelevant. So we do not need to look into author's intentions or close reading or whatsoever. For Barthes, basically text is the methodological field and we need to look into its structure closely. He makes the radical claim that the author's intentions are irrelevant. The author is simply a scripter who weaves together pre-existing codes, meaning resides not in author's mind but in the structure of language itself. So for him the work is a closed, finished object with a definable author, the author God. It has a signified. The text is an open, plural, infinite process. It is a method of production, not a product. So that's the key difference he tries to make, and it's a radical claim in literary criticism. He does not take uh, literary work, the work as a work, but as a text. And for him, the text is an open, plural, indefinite, infinite process. It is a method of production, not a product. It is a made of signifiers without a final signified. So it's the author is simply a scripter who weaves together pre-existing codes, and meaning resides not in author's mind but in the structure of the language itself. For practical application of structuralism to literature, we turn to narratology. This is the attempt to describe the grammar of narrative. So the goal of the structuralist critic not to explain the work but to describe the grammar or structure of that generates its effects. So the famous essay is The Death of the Author, which was we were talking about of Roland Barthes. He applies the Saussure model onto literary criticism appropriately. Now we move for the practical application of structuralism to literature, we turn to narratology. This is the attempt to describe it's an attempt to describe the grammar of narrative. The quest, what is the universal structure of the narrative? So in order to understand a literary piece of work, we basically the aim of for the structure is to know what is the universal structure of the narrative used in that particular uh, piece of literature. So for uh, Vladimir Prop, a formalist, precursor, who was the Russian formalist. Morphology of the folklore argued all fairy tales were composed of 31 functions and 7 character types: the hero, the villain, the donor, etc. So, prop is the first great prop's morphology is the first great attempt. This is a pure language for the fairy tale. He tries to bring all the fairy tales into a kind of one morphology. He says that only there are only 31 functions and 7 characters in all fairy tales, which could be broken down into it. Then there's another narrative discourse that is of Gerard Genett, who's one of the very important figures in structuralist uh, paradigm. Narrative discourse in 1972 is a sophisticated system for analyzing narrative. In order to analyze the narrative, uh, Janet provides us with a system, a sophisticated system, through which he categorizes. For him, is the first thing we need to look into is the order and organize flashbacks, flash words. Then we need to look into the duration, summary, scene, ellipsis, then frequency, how many times an event is narrated in a given piece of work. We need to look into the mood, focalization, who sees it, and then we need to look into the voice, narration, who speaks it. So his system is more sophisticated and flexible system. It provides us with the vocabulary to analyze narratological machinery of any novel. He categorizes in focalization, voice, order, duration. This is often the most useful part of structuralism for a graduate student who's trying to write something, a paper, a piece of paper. So then the key concept of literary analysis is if we summarize the language, the anthropologist, and the narratology of structuralism, the key concepts of literary analysis of structuralism is binary oppositions, the fundamental engine of meaning, that is nature, culture, life, death, man, woman, speech, writing, for example. These are the binary oppositions. So look for the hierarchy. So in a piece of literature, we need to look into the binary oppositions and we try to decode the myth that what binary positions it is trying to reconcile. Then we need to, the key concept, the second key concept of literary analysis is the deep structure, the underlying matrix of rules that generates all surface level variations. For example, grammar of generally, etc. Then comes the bricolage. Levi-Strauss's terms for the way myth makers or the authors create new works using odds and ends of existing cultural structures. And then the paradigm versus syntax. Paradigmatic, the vertical axis of selection, choose the word instead of the one. Syngmatic, the horizontal axis of combination, this word followed by that one. Now, the structuralist critic at work, it's a method. We cannot teach structuralism without also teaching its critique. So largely it comes from the moment it spawned, the post-structuralism. The main critique on the structuralism is basically from the post-structuralists, who were the followers, who were the successors of the school of thought. The core critics are the first one is critique and the move to the post-structuralism. The first critique is of its being ahistoricism. Structuralism is accused of being scientific and static. It ignores history, change, and the specific context of the production. The same charge was levied against liberal humanists as well. Uh, for some of the uh, post-structuralists, it is essential to take into consideration uh, the, the history, the change, the specific context of the production, etc., in order to understand a piece of literature. So, structuralism clearly misses it. That's why it's called a historicism. The second criticism on structuralism is it's called anti-humanism by decentering the subject author of self. Basically, it removes agency and human intentionality. It is language that speaks, not the author. So this is also one of the major. प्लीज आप अपना माइक ऑफ कर दें ये पीछे आवाज आ रही है तो इसको एंटी ह्यूमनिज्म कहा पोस्ट स्ट्रक्चरलिस्ट ने बिकॉज इट इग्नोर्स द मेन द ऑथर और द सेल्फ इट ओनली कंसंट्रेट्स अपॉन द फॉर्म एंड लैंग्वेज द लैंग्वेज दैट स्पीक्स एंड नॉट द ऑथर सो it's it concentrates upon a methodology or it concentrates upon machinery rather than human being. The third criticism is that of the problem of the center. How do we account for the first structure? What structures the structure? This is the problem of the origin. It's a metaphysical question. It's kind of a philosophical question that what provides structure? I mean, the structuralists, they are focused into looking into structure itself, but what provides this structure for the first time. So in order to understand this structure, we need to understand another, the first structure. And what is the first structure? This is the problem of origin. And the fourth major criticism upon structuralism is the birth of post-structuralism. Basically, it is uh, it's a kind of revolt against structuralism. The birth of post-structuralism, like Derrida, Foucault, etc. These French philosophers, they came out against structuralism and they deconstruct their deconstruction attacks the hierarchy of binary oppositions and shows how meaning is endlessly deferred. I mean, if we look into the binary oppositions, uh, it's an infinite abyss. We will be going and looking into different kind of binary positions and show it, there is an endless abyss. Meanings are deferred endlessly. Foucault would call, he questions the very possibility of stable and universal structure that focuses on discourse, power, and historical epistemes rather than human conditions. So this was the criticism upon structuralism, and also it's a kind of a glimpse of post-structuralism, which is the next school of thought we are going to talk about in our literary criticism class. So for today, I think we wind up this structuralist paradigm in critical literary criticism. So if you guys have any question or comment, you can now discuss it. Otherwise, I will just wind up the lecture and I'll see you inshallah tomorrow with the new lecture. So if anyone have any question, please go on and ask. Hello, anyone there?
यस सर।
जी सर, आवाज आ रही है।
So I take it कि आप लोगों का कोई क्वेश्चन नहीं है। माशाल्लाह, क्वेश्चन दो तरह के लोग नहीं करते ना, एक जो अलामा
सर
होते हैं और दूसरे जो जिनको कुछ नहीं आता हमारे जैसे। तो जिसको आधी समझ आती है
सर
वो बात पूछते हैं। जी जी।
सर सजाद बात कर रहा हूँ सर। क्वेश्चन हम कैसे करेंगे ना सर? वो आप 2 मिनट क्लास लेते हैं और हम फिर क्लास से आउट हो जाते हैं कभी, और फिर जब दोबारा से ज्वाइन करते हैं सर बीच में से सर आपने आधा पढ़ाया होता है, तो इस वजह से सर ये क्वेश्चन नहीं हो रहे।
बस बात यह है ना कि वो कहते हैं ना पश्तो में,